Hey everybody, good morning. It's David R. Becker here with BeckerArt, and I'm going to be doing my demo with David, or my Sunday demo with David. And today we're going to be doing a portrait, kind of a portrait of a musician, and I'm going to tabletop. And so here is what I've got going. And so as I was drawing this up this morning, I realized that this image, and I picked it out last night from one of those websites that you can get photos that you and it's I think is a AI generated photo from this I think Pixabay. I did it, and because as I was drawing it and looking closer up at this image and this photo, I thought, because I just picked it up yesterday again from Pixabay, and as I was looking at it, I'm like, man, there's a lot of things wrong with this image, and like the hands and the guitar, right up here, everything was off, and so I just so that when you're working on stuff like this, and if there's things in the picture that you feel that are wrong or don't feel that they're right, you change them, and so that's what I did. I changed it up a little bit and brought the guitar head or the arm, I think that's what they call it, but it was like wiggly, and the fingers. I'm not sure what the fingers it is, so I think it's definitely AI generated, and even the figure in the thing was kind of like okay. And so I changed up a little few things. I made her hairstyle a little bit. Actually, I'm probably gonna erase this part, but I want to show you one thing about when you're doing a drawing. Hey, Maria. Let's see how I bring it to life myself. So I'm gonna it looks like she has her hair going behind like this, and maybe that's a good thing. So I'm gonna erase this part, the pencil line. Just gonna erase the pencil, and maybe have it go behind here, and show her shoulder a little bit more. And I can still have some of the hair go this way too. And you notice how I shaded with my pencil. So for anybody who's watching, and then those people who watch later, I do these every Sunday, and I'm practicing. And actually, I'm working on a new board. This is a Canson board, very thin board, and I've never worked on this, and it's a Canson board. I always try to see what different things there are that you can work on, and this Canson board is very thin. It's like matte board, and though it's watercolor paper on it, so they glue it on there. And I just did a little wash just to see how it would handle, and it seems like it'll handle really good. It really wipes out really easily too, so we'll see. And like I said, Sunday morning is my practicing time, so I sit there and practice, and I just turn on the camera to show you guys. And so I'm using a kneaded rubber eraser, and what I'm going to do is a lot of times when I do the shading, because if I know that the dark area is going to be dark, I shade it with pencil, and that's fine because the lead of the pencil becomes dark with the pigment. So it's like pigment. And so I don't have a problem with that. But if I feel there's too much pigment on there, I take a kneaded rubber eraser, I roll it like this, and I roll it across the paper. And I get rid of the graphite, but it leaves my drawing. And so if you feel like there's an area where it's going to be light, then you just want to go like this and get rid of some of the graphite, but still leaving your line. I learned that from one of my life drawing instructors and one of my mentors who I worked at the agency with, Max Ramft. And he taught me about this, and so what a great, because he was a life drawing teacher, and he showed me how to just roll across your kneaded rubber eraser, and it'll get rid of the graphite but leave the line. That's something I forgot to tell you guys about, because I usually do that a lot when I'm drawing, and I get too thick with it. So I just roll it across here like this. All right, so, and I'm going to be using not a big variety of color. I'm going to be using a lot of black. I am just going to go with the black, and then I'm not going to mix my black either, like some people do. I mean, some people teach you to mix black. I'm just going to take the black and mix color into it when I want color in there. I'm going to start with my light colors, of course. And so I'll start with basically her features, his arm, the guitar is red, her dress is red, and so all that will be done first. Because my light is light and the background's dark, and her hair is dark, and I'm not going to make her a redhead this time. My second favorite color of hair is black. So it's a nice, I like to go with either red or black hair. And so we're gonna make it super shiny black. And like I said, this is, I think it was an AI generated image, and I picked it up from Pixabay, so we'll see. And I switched things. I made her hand different. I put her hand different. I brought it in because it was too far away, and I'm not sure what kind of fingers she had on there. It was just really weird in the picture. All right, so let's just, I might as well start with her face. I'm just going to wet her face, and let's mix a color for her face. And so it's going to be a lot of, she's a little bit, not as, it's more like goth. She's more white. Like, it's not so flesh tony. It's a little bit like white skin. Morning, Ann. Morning, Maria. And let's see. So I want to go with like a creamy color, and so like a dirty pink. And so what could I mix to make a dirty pink? I can mix a little bit of brown, orange in there. Maybe a little bit of black. Maybe just put a little black into there. Dull it down. Again, it's going to be, I don't want to make it really bright, flesh tones. It's more light white, and this whole image is very black and red. And so I'm going to use a lot of that. I'm going to put some purple in there too. Put some red into this. I still follow my things where I put in the cheeks, I put, make it more rosy. Because, and I can keep parts of it light, keep it white, I mean. And so you notice how I go right into the hair, because the hair is going to be darker, and so I pre-wet it, and then I just had a workshop on Friday in Morris, and I was teaching them all how to just basically work wet into wet, because it's such an important thing to be able to do, because you can get all those soft edges. And then I will get the darks right away in the face too, and I'm going to use some purple. Warm it up a little bit. Some black. So a lot of purple is going to be going into the darks, into her eyes and stuff. I know it seems kind of weird, but I want it to be not a super colorful, bright painting. I want it to look like what it is. That's the reason I like it. I like the picture because it's kind of more like, she seems a little bit lighter skin, goth kind of. I'm going with a little bit of purple. Put a little bit of lavender in there. Go underneath her. And it's all wet right now, so I can get a really nice, beautiful, soft edge going. The side of her face is all kind of dark. And you notice I didn't use a real lot of thick paint to get the flesh tone. Because the flesh tone is very, very subtle. Very subtle in the flesh tones. Though I still want to get the softness of the form. Again, a little bit of purple, maybe a little bit of black, and purple and red on the side of her face, because her hair actually kind of comes into her shadow part of her face. And then again, it's all about pigment, and so I'm going to rub my brush off here on my towel and pick up the pigment. And there's a lot of water in here, so it's water can't control anything. You got to control it with pigment. And the side of her nose is pretty dark on the side of her nose right here. But I have to do it slowly, and I've got to get it with the right amount of color, right amount of pigment, so it doesn't bleed. I don't want it to bleed, but her cheek is still nice and rosy, so I'm going to get in with a little bit of rosy cheeks in here. And then still have the nice shading underneath her nose. And I know it's kind of weird that you're doing this first and foremost, but it is my lights, and with watercolor you really should go with your lights first. Now it's starting to dry a little bit too fast here, so I'm going to re-wet it here a little bit. Since it's such a small area too, you can re-wet it. Here, re-wet a little bit. Watch your water amount. I mean, it's so important to regulate your water amount on your brush and on your paper at the same time. A little bit darker. I mean, her hair is going to be black, and I'm going to make it solid black with a little bit of blue and purple in it. So don't be afraid of getting too dark. I mean, that's what makes this picture look so cool, of the dark darks. And you could maybe even do this one on black paper, but I just want to show you that you can also do things on white paper and make them really dark. And gray. And you make a warmth of gray. Chat went away again because of the stupid advertising here. Let me go down and see if anybody's chatting. And then I'm going to go up here. Working the shadows on her face first, and see that I'm just using some dark colors, but with warmth in it. I'm putting some orange maybe in here too. Makes it kind of brownish. That's okay. It's all about how much pigment you have in your brush compared to what you have on the paper. And if it's too much paint on, or too much water in your brush, and there's too much water there, it's just going to run all over the place. So you need to learn how to use the pigment and really take it onto the towel and just get your pure pigment when you're putting it in a wash that's already wet. If your paper's already wet and you're looking for soft edges, you use the pigment to get it to be soft. And she's got the shadow by her nose here, and then you got to figure underneath her chin, right into this area. I can make this part hard edged right there. That's okay. I'm dipping into pinks because it's more like the flesh tone that I'm using. Putting a little bit of purple and black. I haven't used that much blue because, oh, I should be using a little bit of blue too. Let me put a little blue in here. And this is like gray, and it's going to lighten lighter, so I'm using a big flat brush, but the point on this is so pointed, so I can still make it look really nice and detailed. And if you have any questions, please ask away. I'll look up every once in a while to see if you guys got questions. I go right into her flesh tone here, into her chest right here, and her shoulders. Again, go with a little bit of pink, red maybe. I can go right over these dark parts because those are going to be darker later, so let's just go right over that. I'm going to see if I can't keep parts of it white of the paper too. This is really strange because I normally, you normally use really vibrant colors for flesh tones, right? But I want to keep it gray like this, like they have it, and so I have to think of whole different color schemes that I've never used before. And that's what I'm practicing. I'm trying to do a little bit different things here and there. She's got a little bit of necklace here and a little bit of... The necklace is silver. It looks like a silver necklace here. I'll make her shoulder right here lighter by taking out and absorbing some of the paint into my brush. And see how nice it is having a towel on your paper? You never have to have it in your hand. You just go with your brush and just tap it there and then pull up some of the paint, pull it back out of the paper. I don't like her nose up here. It looks kind of weird. There we go. I'll be doing more on that later with hard edges, but right now we're doing our lights. We're doing our light areas. This part by your chest here should be a little bit lighter. I'm pulling out colors. But like I was saying, this is a new board I've never worked on, so I have to try to figure it out too. And stuff comes off of it really easily. Like you can pull up and take paint out of it really easily, like rubbing it off. Again, it's Canson. I'm not sure who makes, well, Canson, whatever. I'm not sure what kind of paper if it's Canson paper, watercolor paper. It's got kind of a weird texture, which I really don't like that much, but, I'm just trying to see what this looks like. Now I don't want to touch it because it's dry now, and so don't go into an area that's damp, because if it's damp, then it's no man's land. You don't want to go in when it's damp, because then you'll make watermarks. So let's get her arm here now, and it's light on the side. And why would I be doing the, the lights? Is because with watercolor, that's what the first thing you do is the lights always. And so parts of her hand here I keep white. And I made a lot of this up the hand because the hand that this AI generator made for this, whoever made this generation of this picture, I don't think it was a good job. Like it didn't do a great job of it. So you can change things because you're the artist, so you draw it a little bit different than what it is. And here I'm putting some black. I'm using black purple for my shadowing. And then put a little bit of pink into it too. And some flesh tone, some orange into that too, which makes it kind of brownish, but that make it dark. And on their hand here, it's going a little darker. I use peach black for anybody who wants to know what kind of black I use. I don't think they're that different. If you do use like a Mars black or a ivory black, they're so close. I did a video on it once, and boy, it's really hard to tell the difference between the blacks colors that you're using, because it's just really dark. Now this dress part is going to be dark red, and so I'll be using Scarlet Lake for that, but also alizarin. And so I'm just going to make some really dark reds in there too, because they'll be reflecting. The chair is a wood chair, but that's more of a dark. And so right now I'm doing my lights. Going in here, getting my lights. Even though they're dark in the lights, they will be very light later on. You watch how light they get. Yeah, the board is, Maria just asked, you finding the watercolor is flowing the way it does on watercolor paper on this board? Yeah, it does. It's actually feeling pretty good, because when you wet it, the only thing I don't kind of like is the texture. It has like a man-made texture. That's the only thing I don't like about the paper, I think. It seems a little bit harsh and man-made looking. I like the look of the texture to be not so man-made looking, but that's not bad. It's not horrible, but yeah, it's one of those things that when you're used to a certain texture on your paper, when you get something new, it looks so different. So if you don't like that look of man-made paper, then you wouldn't like this paper, because it's very man-made looking, like it's like a pressed image on there. The pressed texture, I mean. And now that it's drying, it's just so subtle, and I'm seeing it on my camera how subtle my warmth is in there. It's really, really barely noticeable that there is some warmth in the flesh tones. Like I put some pink in there. I'll put a little bit more in the shadow part here. And then the black hair will really make it come out even more, make it even more light. And then she'll have red lipstick, and I can put it on her forehead and maybe a little bit more. But right now we're just going to get this rest of the lights going here. Her arm is actually in the dark, but I'm just gonna, and look at how I use the dark of the pencil. The pencil lead helps it out to makes it like a dirty color, but that's okay, because it is like it is pigment. It's kind of like pigment. So there. It's strange, I know, that to think that this is my light areas. I mean, this arm is light. I consider it in the light area, but it is somewhat dark. And right here, so let me make it a little bit darker. And I made up this arm because the arm in the picture that the AI generated is not very good. So I just made my own hand. I mean, that's what I did for a living, is make up all my imagery. because you just have to make it up because there's no picture you can get at the time for the for the storyboards. Here, make this a little bit darker. And let's go with the same color here. Notice I'm not using the same color, so let's get some pink in there, some red. Because once the red guitar is there, then all this red will be into the areas. So again, the lights are put down first so that you can put the darks over it, and then put it over the light areas, and that way you then see the outline of the hand and stuff. And all this stuff down here is all really dark, and you're going to see how dark I'm going to get. It's going to be super, super dark. So right now what I want to do is I want to get, so those are all my lights. Now I'll go do my middle tones, which are my red guitar. And so I'm going to make it super bright red. And I don't have to worry about going beyond the guitar because I'm going to make that with black or something really dark. But I do want the red to be super, super shiny and bright. So I'm using pure red pigment, which is Scarlet Lake. I'm using a Scarlet Lake. I'm going to use a little alizarin here. A little bit of violets. I'll come back later to do the really dark stuff. And the lines on the guitar, the white lines, they're just going to be paint. I'm not going to... You could put masking fluid there, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it. Now this front part of her dress is really light. It's like a pink. And so I'm going with a nice pink. And there's a bunch of like things sewn into it, very sparkle, sewn into the dress. And I want that to be in there, but I'll do that for details at the very end. So here's my middle tone. And the guitar down here gets really dark, and so I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to separate the top of the leg with the guitar. And I want to give it movement, and so I don't want it to be... I just saw a person do a painting, it was an oil of boxers, and man, it was so neat to see how they left things so out of focus, and not so many things in focus. And that's what I want to kind of do here. I'm going to have certain things, and then when I do the background, I'm just going to come down and just make things very, very out of focus. And so I'm getting my middle tones now, and then get some bright reds in here. So these are my middle tones, so I don't need to get my darks yet. I'll get my darks in a second, as soon as I get my middle tones all in here. Get some purple. And learn to use a lot of paint when you're getting something dark. And try to get it one shot. And don't be afraid of using black. People tend to think like, well, I should mix my blacks, but you can do that too. I mean, I don't mind that if you can do it. A lot of people have a hard time mixing their blacks, or they don't have the right colors to make a super dark back. But if I use black and I mix red into it and stuff, it just becomes a dark red. So I don't find it bad at all if you sit there and take black and then mix color into it to make a nice colorful black. It's a lot easier, I found out, for students to do it that way. Look at how I'm going in here now with black, purple, going in with a really dark color. And it will look kind of flat when it dries a little bit, but then when I wax it, it kind of brings it all together. Kind of makes everything hang together again. This is the side of the guitar, and now this is wet, and so it'll be a soft edge right there, which I don't mind that to be a soft edge. I love soft edges. I'm trying to make a lot of things more soft edge nowadays, because that makes it out of focus. It's not important to see that part so much. Now the chair behind it is also red, so I'm going to just put some red in there. And the thicker the paint is when you're working wet into wet, the more you can control it. I can control it very simply when it's wet by putting a lot of pigment in there. It's one of those things you have to learn as about watercolors. You have to do that. You have to be able to take and work wet into wet on dry, and not have to think about what you're doing. Just do it. Just get in there. Knowing how much pigment will stop it from running too far. I'm not sure why I started that area to be my first dark, but you know, I just did. It's because I'm trying. And I also made this chair up kind of a little bit. I didn't see it on this side, but I figured it's on this side. The other arm would be on this side, and I've just kind of made it up like that. And then this whole area is really dark, and so I'm going to wet the area and just kind of make it dark. And work the pigment. Work the pigment so that it stays there and stops where you need to stop. Need to be have an edge there. It needs to be enough pigment so that it will show as whatever object you want it to be right there, at the edge of the chair. And the rest, where it's really dark, just make it really dark. Make it black so it doesn't see anything, like you don't see anything in there. And that is fine. I mean, look at the picture itself. There's things in there, like this whole area here, you don't see what's in there because it's so dark. But that's what makes it so neat. And I kind of learned that from looking at Andrew Wyeth's watercolors. And even Jamie Wyeth, they do so much black in their work. And I went and saw one of his paintings in Rockland, Maine at the Three Generations. They had all these Wyeth paintings there in Rockland, Maine. And man, it was cool to see. I walked in and there's a big blueberry painting with blueberries. And it was just basically black and blue. I mean, no other colors, just black, super black. And I thought, once I saw that, I said, you know what? I have to start using black. I have to start using really a dark color because it just makes everything, the blue, shine on the blueberries like you wouldn't believe. So that was really cool. So we'll leave that at that. This area is wet, so I'm going to stop here. So let's go to the background now, because the background is a little bit lighter than her hair, and so when I do her hair, I'm going to use the light, or use the really darks, and then go on top of a really light background. So I use my big brush, my 1 inch. I'll start just wetting the surface. It seems like this paper is not too bad. Like I said, the only thing I don't like about it is the texture. But that may not be anything if you don't see it, or if you don't, well, you can kind of see it. Switch over here and it goes so. All right, so it's lighter gray right through here, and then the chair will be a little bit darker than the background. And so I don't have to worry about going in the head because it's going to be darker. As a matter of fact, some of the color should be in the hair. So, which is going to be kind of gray. And how do you make a gray? Well, you can use gray on gray. I actually have a gray. It's called gray on gray. I can mix two complements together, blue and orange, and that can make a gray. It'll either make it warm gray, or if you go with a darker blue, it'll make it a cool gray. See how I'm going right to the head? And now you can probably see the texture too. I don't know if you can see the texture. It's really a weird texture. But I think it was not that expensive, the paper. That's one thing I look for too for students, so that that's not so expensive. Here, make a little bit blue in there. Put a little blue in the gray. And notice how I'm going into the hair. I want that blue to be in the hair because then the blue will be my light part of the hair. And then as it goes over here, it gets darker and darker. I really am loving working on boards though. Working on boards and just having it solid, not having to worry about taping the paper down, going right to the edge, and then just putting it into a frame is just, I love that. It just makes it feel more like an oil painting too. And so that's a good thing. I mean, I think it's a really good thing, because then you can just varnish it or wax it or whatever, and right away you're ready to put it into a frame. I should go right down. Let's go right. See, I'm just gonna go right down this arm here and just get that done right away too. Right by your fingers. Make it nice and wet so its pigment is floating. When the pigment is floating, then you know for sure that it's going to soften itself. It's going to soften itself really nicely. Take some solid black here. Get some solid black in some of these areas. I should have done the chair first because it is lighter than this area, but I'll just go back in. And like, what kind of texture do you want too? Do you want a texture that you spatter a little bit? Maybe I do a little spattering. Watch her face though. How wet is it that you wanted to get it there? Do you want to put some red in back there? Maybe try it. What kind of wash can you do that it becomes your wash, your kind of way of doing washes? The thicker the paint, the more it's gonna stay there. The thicker the paint, the less it's gonna bleed around. The water will make it bleed around. And actually the hair is darker, right? So let's go right in there again. Let's go right into the head. Don't worry about the head right now. See how the thicker the paint, the more it stays where it's gonna stay. I love all this little stuff happening here. That's cool. Just bring it right into the hand. Need to paint the hand. Go right into this area, top of her hand. See, I don't try to make things like this is the arm, this is this is that. I try to bring these washes together as one. And this is a really dark neck of the guitar, and so I'm just gonna go right into the hole here because the strings I'm gonna paint in with white. Look how fun that is! Isn't that great? This needs to be a little bit more textury. Now over here it goes into a warmth. So over here I'm gonna put some red because there's like this red thing that comes down. It's really dark red. So alizarin, but it is very dark, you know. And so I'm just gonna use some black, purple, make it really dark. I don't know what it has been with watercolors. I did it myself for the longest time that we never get very dark because it always lightens so bright, and so you tend to, as a watercolorist, never get really, really dark with stuff. And so that's how come I'm lately just trying to get people to use more paint, because it's all about how much paint you have in your brush. And so you really need to put a lot in there, especially when it's wet like this. I could pick it up too and let it run down too. That'd be kind of fun. But I'm not. I'm just going to go in here and just see, get a little bit of blue, this light gray and gray. I know it looks kind of almost too thick, like you're getting this texture of the brush work, but that's okay. The water is going to, there's enough water in here, it will it will blend it together and make all kinds of different things happen. As long as it's floating, your pigment is not thick. It's not going to be too thick. You just have to make sure that the water is there, and you can blend the water. Let the water blend itself together. And I'm going a little bit farther into the hair, so that because if you don't have pigment, it can't do all those fun things with your pigment, with your paint. And the water can't do anything if you don't have enough pigment. If it's just like a tint of color, nothing's going to really happen. It's just going to be like a tint, a light tint, and it's going to dry definitely 20% lighter. And I learned that through working on black paper, because when you're trying to cover black paper, man, you need a lot of paint in it. So I think by working my black paper, it really taught me a lot about the white paper and how to get the white paper to cover up when you're trying to get it dark. Because when black paper, if you want to get it light, you have to use a lot of pigment. Super lot of pigment, because it always keeps on getting lighter and lighter. I like these little drips here in the picture. So we're going to get really dark right here, because even the chair gets really dark. And then you see a little bit of her arm here, but her arm right here has a little bit of wrap on it, some kind of wrapping thing. And so I'm going to put that in there in a second when I do my details. But it gets really dark through here. I'm going to spatter a little bit. And her head looks really weird now. Don't worry about her head. Her head is going to be dark, really dark. And so People tend to get really worried about things because it doesn't look right. Paintings don't look right the whole way through. Like, it doesn't look good the whole way through. I always try to tell beginners that, like, I know they want it to look nice the whole time they're painting it, but that's not a thing. You can't have it looking really nice. It's got to go through this ugly stage, and it doesn't always look good, the whole painting, all the time. Now this is all really dark, and then I'm going to put the strings in. Look at how much paint I'm dipping in. Man, I got in so much paint. And that's where you need fresh paint. And that's the reason I think a lot of people never work really, never really dark, is because they don't have enough paint in their palette, and they're scared to use that much paint. It's almost like you're putting on as thick as when you're using acrylic, because I really am putting on a lot of paint, but it's wet, and so that's where it's just softening up. A little bit of red in here now. That's where you need good paint, good quality medium. I have to tell you the story. I always trying to find you guys deals, and so I'm going to Five Below, the store Five Below, where everything's $5. So I went in there thinking, oh, I'm going to see what they have. I know they have some art stuff. They do have a sketchbook, that really like a hardcover sketchbook for $5, which is really nice. So that was really neat. They also have watercolor pencils. They're kind of cheap, but I like the container that they came in, the metal container, because I think I'm going to make a palette out of it. But then they had watercolors, like they had 30 watercolors, these bright watercolors. I thought, ooh, $5 for 30 watercolor tubes. And there were tubes. I'm thinking, how bad could this be? They were bad. Basically, it seemed like goop. That was like some kind of goop they had, and they put food coloring in it or something, because when you go to mix it, there was absolutely no pigment. And I know pigment when I work. I know how much pigment I have in a thing, and so I'm trying to get the pigment to like mix together, but there was no pigment, and it just kind of dissipated and disappeared. Everything kind of disappeared in there. And I'm like, wow, this is so weird that it's just like disappearing. All this watercolor was just disappearing, and I'm thinking to myself, you wouldn't even want to give it to your grandchildren, or kids to work on, because it's just terrible. It was really, really bad. And so do not buy the watercolor. I'm thinking I was just going to save some money for, like, if grandparents want to bring paint over for their grandchildren to work with. You don't want to do it, because it would make them crazy, because it wasn't working at all. There was nothing. You couldn't find anything. I couldn't get anything to like mix, and it would just dissipate and disappear. Like, look at this dark. I mean, I need a lot of pigment to make the dark and make these things go to black almost. And here's like the chair part. So working things a lot and doing a lot of painting, you just realize why you need paint, brushes, you need good brushes. All that stuff is because the more you do, the more you realize how important it is to get like good materials. So I'm just going here. This is the armchair. The arm of the chair. Put a little bit of brown in there. Because pigment controls water. Water is just out of control at all times. So to control the water part of your painting, you have to put pigment, and you use pigment to control everything. It will stop it from. It's like putting a dam on your area, so that the water doesn't keep on bleeding, and you can pull out that water if you want. And doing a dark painting like this and not doing it on black paper really shows how much paint you do need. I know I keep on harping on it, but it's such an important thing to learn how to do, is work wet into wet, wet on dry, and work dark areas. Knowing when to do a soft edge and a hard edge, and if you need a soft edge, you gotta wet it. You don't have to blend. There is no such thing as blending in what. You don't have to blend in watercolor. You let the watercolor blend itself. It's all about the watercolor blending itself. All right, so now we're getting close to, let's see, this part. Now that the background's almost all done here. So I'm looking to get the background done, then I'm going to go into the figure. Whatever's on this side should be on this side. So this is still wet up here, so I get, I can see when things are wet by looking from the side, because the side shows me the lighting, and so it looks like sparkly, right? So you can tell when it's wet. When it starts to get dry, stay away from that. That's no man's land. You cannot go into a painting that is like matte. If it's matte and there's no shine, that means it's not wet, and so you can't float your pigment on that. All right. I'm just looking around here what I still got to do for the background. This part of the chair too, I'm going to get, and this wasn't really there in the picture, this part of the chair. I had to make this up. I'll go into the hair, because again the hair is going to be black, and so I don't have to worry about the hair, because I can put dark on top of whatever this is going to be. That's what you gotta start realizing, is when you're painting in watercolor, that's why you do the lights first, so that you can put the darks over top of it. I know this is red here from her arm, like it is. There's gonna be there's a red part of her dress, so let's do that. But it's so dark over here, it's like I don't want to make it that important over here. Pull out a little bit of her arm. Okay, now our dress is really dark. And so let's see, we do our dress. Well, let's do the guitar first here. On this side, it has to be really dark red. Or it has to be really bright red. Again, I can go into the dress because the dress is darker. And this little thing around there is also black, and so you can go right into that. So that was wetting as I go along. I'm wetting it as I go along. There's water in there, and then I'm just going to make it darker as it goes away from the top here. Once it's wet, it'll soften itself. Use pigment to let it soften itself. And give it enough water. You can tell when it's going to like run on or sit on top and just kind of bleed together. Now that is really bright, and so I'm gonna get a little bit of, so it looks like on both sides here. I know it's not dry yet, but I'm just gonna make this really, really bright here. I can always go back into that side. Now I'm gonna use my small brush, and I know that the arm look how light it got, the arm and the face and stuff, how light it was, and it's always hard to gauge that in the beginning, trying to figure out exactly how dark you want something to be. What time is it here? Okay, I gotta hurry up here a little bit. This may take a little bit longer than an hour. We'll see. So now we're gonna see how I'm using my small round brush. I'm gonna get all these little things in there. But this is really dark. So I go into the background, pick up some of the background dark, bring it down here. Really nice dark red right here. There's a lot of little threads and stuff, and some kind of threads in here. It's really cool. I love that. And go to something really dark, and you notice I'm just using really dark colors because it's out of focus and you don't see it what it is, and that's what I want. I want to look out of focus. Or I want to look at so it's like you can't see what's behind there. Right here I'm using pure black. Nice and wet. It's very wet when there's a lot of water in my brush because there wasn't any water on the board right there, and so now I'm going to go to a little bit red. See, I'm basically using black and red and purple. And then this side of the guitar gets really dark, gets really black. And that goes right into the hair. Oh, there's a lot of red here too. There's a lot of red for a dress. I'll put the red there, and then I'll come back in with the hair over top of that. And then it looks like there's all these little threads that are really cool looking. And her arm here too, same thing. This arm piece is black actually. I'm going to use a little red in there too. Use my rigger brush to get these little see, and while I have it in my hand, I might as well put some over here, so that's the same thing on this side. Trying to hurry here. I want to make sure I get it done before time ends up being an hour. Boy, it's really bright, isn't it? See, if I put my hand over this, my lights are too bright. Nothing I can do right now. Because see how when I put my hand over the lighting, you can see that's a little bit less. All right, let's go into the hair. Let's do the hair. So the hair goes way up here. And look how dark I'm making it. I'm making it solid black. And that's okay. Make it solid black. I want it to be solid black. That's the darkest part right here. I want the most contrast right here by the face. My brush is really wet, has a lot of pigment, and I know I need to put a lot down to make it transparent, but so dark that you don't see the paper, the white of the paper. And then now you see how the shadows are way too bright, right? But that's okay. And then to get some of this blue from that I thought was light, dark enough, but it isn't now. But we can have some of this being shiny, her hair being shiny, so that would be shiny blue. And I can actually make it blue. See, I'll just put blue in there. Solid black with a little bit of purple and some dark blue. And it goes out a little bit. I'm not doing the fine hairs yet. I'm just doing the big parts of the hair. Because this brush is a little bit too... I can do it with the rigger brush a little bit better. Bring that hair right down. Now this is still nice that this is wet because I can bring it into that area. Now we go with a rigger brush because the rigger brush can give me a really fine point. And so I can go right across her face. Make more hairs like, and go into the light part. The chain itself too, and I'm going to put some more hairs here. And I know it goes more behind, but I like the hairs coming over here a little bit too. Why not? Now the blue, I'm taking like a light blue and putting in the reflection in her hair. Because even black hair has light reflections. But see how I use solid black? and how dark it is. Isn't that great? And to mix that would be very, very hard. Let me tell you, it's very hard to mix it really dark like that. And I'll put her eyes in there again. Put her eyebrows a little bit darker now, since I got the black going in here. See again, see when I put my hand over this. Let me turn down this light. I better not. I don't have much time. I got 9 minutes. 9 minutes. Hold on. We'll get it done. Put her red lips on. Her lips on top are dark, so that would be like a alizarin. Like an alizarin with some red. So nice and dark lips on top. And the bottom lip can be bright, bright red. And yes, I use a small brush because that's what you need to do it like that. And the shadows on her face are not dark enough as they used to, like they were in the beginning, because they have nothing to gauge it towards. So, but you know, you just do it now. I'll wait a little bit and I'll come back in that area and make things darker there. Surround the guitar now is darker. And then, like with this part now is detailed, so detail takes longer. So don't be afraid to spend time. You know, I don't have to rush it. I can also do it when after I'm off live, and I'll just maybe finish some of the really fine details, because details spend time. Like when I do the lines of the guitar, I'm gonna use white paint and a ruler, you know, because it's important that they look good. This other stuff, you know, can be, it doesn't have to be, the stuff I did in the beginning doesn't have to be so detailed, and so not that big a deal. Not as big a deal. Let's do her. So for her necklace and this little pendant, I'm just going to make it, not sure what the pendant is, but we're just going to make it like dark. And then do a really dark in there too, because it's like silver. It looks like a silver pendant, so it'll be shiny. Meaning you get white, really dark, medium. I gotta turn this light away because this light is really so bright on it. That's better. See how it's really, it's a lot. It's not as light as it looks like in the photograph or on the camera. All right, quickly now I'm gonna get some of my white back because my white is all yellowy. So what I do is I just go in here and wet it, and then I take a paper towel or my towel, put it in there and get some white back. And going with my rigger brush because yeah, I'm gonna have to work on this a little bit over the hour because there's still a bunch of details I've got to get in there. But let me just get enough of it to show you what I'm going to do for some of the white. So this is white paint. This is titanium white. And this will have to dry before I do the strings, and I'll do a few of the strings. And they get wider, and as they go up here, they get a little bit wider. And this actually happens to be a little bit more detailed than I wanted to make it. I'm still trying to learn how to do the abstract things a little bit, but we'll get to there. We'll get there someday. Here, I'm gonna put these little parts of her dress that have all kinds of little stuff happening in here, like little things that are little trinkets and little jewels on the dress, sewn into the dress. I'll do the same thing up here, put bright red. And it looks like she has like a vest on here too. There's like a vest with a bunch of stuff. But we're not going to worry too much about that. So the last thing that I want to do here is I want to kind of darken my flesh tones again, because the flesh tone got a little bit too light. I didn't have the shadowing of the flesh tone as well as I'd like to have had it. So let's really quickly, in the 4 minutes I have, I'm going to go back into the flesh tone a little bit. Let's start with her face, just so you can see how you can go. You can always go back in. You know, you can go back in. I'm going to put a little bit darker in her eyes here. And then a shadow down her nose. Some more reds in her cheek. That's a little bit too much. Because there are some darks in her face. There's like these shadows are pretty dark, and so don't be afraid to get it nice and dark in there. Now I can also put reflections or shadows from the hair itself. And then her collarbone or neck. Oh, see, it's this light too. Yeah, it's a little bit too dark. I'll push that light over on this side. I gotta get my setup here a little bit better. There we go. Now it's not so light. It's a little bit darker down the side of her nose. Get this a little bit darker down here. Coming up to 1 hour, and look at, we're almost done. Cool. And then this whole side of her arm is darker. And it's actually cool doing it this way too, because then you can have things softened. You can soften it up a little bit. Chest here a little bit. Not everything has to be hard edged. You kind of softens things up here and there. So just basically I'm taking dirty pigment from my palette and making things dark. And at the same time I'm doing that, I'm just bringing in water, and that'll soften the edges really nicely for me. And she has her arm here. This goes to dark. This part is light. There's the 3 knobs on one side here. I'm just going to rub them out. See, I'm just rubbing them out. See, you can also rub things out too. Do one string here. I'm going to just use the back of this board to do my edges for the strings. And I'm not going to make them all the way across up I think. I'm just going to kind of wet my brush. And put one See how nicely you can do that? So I use a ruler or a board like this, and I just take it and I 2, 3. Let's go on this one. All right, and that's almost too perfect. I may go in there and then on this side of the guitar, there's this little thing here. Fingers. I know I'm going over a little bit, 1 minute over, but we're good. Hit the fingers. Now I'm using opaques. See, I'm using opaque, and so I'm just going to go in there, opaque the fingers up a little bit. Hey Sherry from Indiana, thanks for stopping by. A few more hairs coming through here. And sometimes you get these nice marks, these watermarks, that actually are looking good. And I like that. I like watermarks like this. Is like part of the watercolor technique that I like. Put some dark here. I'm going to try to mess up the lines a little bit so that it's not so perfect, these lines. All right, I think there we have it. We're going to put a little shine into the guitar right here. And a little bit of this dress has a little bit of stuff going on in there. This arm is too bright, I just noticed. 1 second. We're almost done. This is too bright. This is too bright. And I put little dots in here to make it look like jewels on her dress. I think that's it, guys. I think we're done. So thanks again for stopping by this Sunday. And if you have any questions about this afterwards, or if you think of something and you're thinking, oh, I should have asked that, you can still ask it in the comment section of the video, and I will try to answer it. But have a great rest of the day. And I just noticed now too, I'm going to put some of this blue. So I'll work on this a little bit more to just clean it up like the last thing. But this blue up here has to be somewhere down here. So I'll put a little bit of it down here, and we're all done. All right. So until Thursday, come by on Thursday, and please tell your friends. I'm almost at 5,000 subscribers to YouTube, so please tell your friends, and I would love to have them come by and learn watercolor. This is a watercolor technique that was transparent and didn't look like it, but I had to use a lot of pigment. But have them stop by and subscribe to my channel, because every Thursday I do a free video, a paint along. All right, and sign up for my newsletter at BeckerArt.net. Have a great day, guys.